The pen is said to be the tool, and the most important one for that matter, of the journalists. This program is called Pens Down because this is where the news reporter and the news presenter becomes the newsmaker. So the journalist drops their pen on this show. That is why we call it Pens Down. Today, I have a senior colleague with me. She is a consummate media practitioner with more than 2 decades experience in TV production, digital media, creative writing, news reporting, editing, and news team management, among others. She is also a poet, author, and multimedia trainer. From a teenage trainee reporter at NTA Nigeria more than 20 years ago, she has worked in various capacities across newsrooms of notable media establishments, telling people-oriented stories and mirroring events through the power of the media across 4 continents. She has also had stints with public relations and movie production with 2 movies to her credit. My guest today, and I'm honored, is my senior colleague, Omotola Adebanjo. Welcome to PENSDOWN.
It's my pleasure. You make me sound so old.
Well, you are the experienced hand in the crafts, no doubt about that.
I started quite early. I started journalism at the age of 19, actually.
19 years, doing what?
As a cub reporter in the newsroom, covering stories. I remember I actually started as a sports reporter. I used to go to matches, watch. I used to cover football matches. I was so in Kaduna, not West Nigeria.
Okay.
There's a stadium called. There's a stadium where when I go to, the security man knows me. He just allows me into the pitch. I just sit down and I cover the matches, But after a while, I realized that I'd rather do much more because there weren't so many women in sports in 1999 in Nigeria, 1998. And I also saw that I was a restless person. I'm a utility reporter. I cover everything. Okay. And I saw that I cannot restrict myself to sports. I needed to do other things. So I left sports and became more of a utility reporter, doing every other story out there.
You are experienced in digital media. How is social media disrupting the practice of journalism?
When we started, we were told that we were the gatekeepers. So back then, we were just the newsroom. The news is at 4:00. Until then, nothing happened. There was no social media. There was nothing. Everybody relied on us to know what the establishment was saying, to know what the celebrities were saying, what everybody was saying. Yeah. But now, we've stopped being the gatekeepers. We have become part of the community of people with information. The same information I may have, somebody in their mother's basement somewhere may have the same information. But the difference is, as a journalist, I can't just write anything. I can't just publish anything. I need to verify. I need to talk about balance, making sure that what I'm pushing out there is palatable, doesn't incite people. So the difference between me and the average social media user is I have journalism ethics.
Yeah.
Who guide me in making sure that I pass out my information responsibly.
One thing that is happening in Ghana today is the high level of attrition. So many highly trained, highly qualified journalists are shifting camp. Some are pitching their tents in corporate communications or public relations. Others are also going into entirely different areas. Is that the situation in Nigeria? If it is, what is accounting for it?
It's not just in Ghana. When you were talking, it seemed like you were talking about the Nigerian media. For a moment, for like almost 3 years, between 2015 and 2018, I was literally unemployed because it wasn't because there were no jobs. It was because the media owners weren't paying salaries. And so it became difficult to be a professional in the sense of doing balanced stories, not being financially incentivized by politicians and all of that. It was really tough. I had to take like those 3 years, but that's when I started writing poetry, and I realized that I had a gift I wasn't even tapping into. So for most people here in Nigeria, most of these fantastic people, in fact, I wrote a poem. I have a poem called Life in the Fourth Estate that talked about the rot in society, how the media is the fourth estate of the realm. We are the people guarding the democracy, but how can we do that when we're hungry? Because a lot of journalists with passion, the people you have mentioned about, and I just spoke to one of them yesterday who works for an insurance company. And he said, look, I want to come back into the media, but where will he come back to? Because in as much as passion drives journalism. I love journalism. I could do it for free. It's my life. It's my calling. But I also want to pay my bills. I don't want to work. At the end of the day, I'm trying to, how do I pay lunch? How do I pay school fees? How do I pay my rent? So those people who live, in that poem, I said, they have led journalism to the dregs of the pool. Because that's what happens. People who are not professionals are the people writing. I read some stories online and I want to scream. But the people who can't do it also need to pay their bills. So they ask themselves, would I rather be here with my passion, mess myself up, mess my family up by doing something atrocious, collecting brown envelope from one politician or the other, or swallow my pride, put my passion inside of me, go and earn an honest living for my family? So for most people, it's an issue of money. And then there's the greed factor for some other people. But most passionate professionals, it's because they can no longer cope with a situation where you work and you do not know when your salary will come. Now, for some people, they say, oh, it doesn't matter, but it matters. The fact that you work and at the end of the month, you don't get a salary begins to affect your psyche, begins to affect how you think. It begins to affect your self-esteem. You begin to think less and less of yourself because you think I'm not valuable enough for something. So I think majorly, it's money, and then the low standards is most organizations where most owners want first-class journalism with third-class equipment, with third-class, financial incentive, financial backing. They want you to be like CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, and then give you what didn't work for, local stations 10 years ago. So it's a lot of factors, but I think most importantly is about finance, not getting paid, not just not getting paid on time, not getting paid what you're worth.
Yeah. Have you at any point, or how many times have you been approached with anything material or monetary so that you compromise the details or the facts of a story you were doing, and then you take it home?
A couple of times, I'll give a very vivid example. I used to work in a TV station where salaries were not paid at all. Salaries were not even on the table. You don't expect it. There were people who had been in this organization for years. Some people have not been paid in 2 years. But they have all kind of illicit ways to make money. So here was I, just coming from public relations, from my beef stint in public relations, where I realized that this public relations is not for me. I'm a journalist through and through. So there was a case of a Nigerian senator who was accused of snatching the ballot box. Okay. So I was asked to go and investigate the story. When I got to him with my cameraman, he told us the story 3 times. I told my cameraman, the story does not lie, the guy is lying. So the guy says, oh, reporter, yeah, your cameraman, you guys can go and have lunch, something. And then after a while, he said, oh, that's, you have to find a way to help me. I said, look, sir, my job is to listen to you, listen to the other party, listen to the electoral body, put my story together and let the people decide who is right or wrong. But sometimes people just think they can have their way and then they can, and so he tried to offer me some money. At the end of the day, I did my story. What happened was, I don't know who the guy offended in my station. After my story aired, I don't know who he offended in my station. Then there were these rushes, I did the story, but they never gave me those rushes. Rushes of him actually carrying the ballot box. They just played the rushes, immediately after my story. And so the guy calls me, can you see what your people are doing? I'm like, well, sir, I told you, I'm just here to do a story. He tried to bribe and get his way, but he didn't. But the truth is, it's really very hard when you're not getting paid to be able to say to some of those things. Yeah. It's really, I'm not going to sit here and be all holier than thou and say, no, I don't do that, because it's very hard. Especially when it looks like, where do you go? There's nowhere else to go. Everybody is the same way.
On the back of all these, would you say journalism pays?
Yes, I would say that. I would say that the satisfaction you get from changing somebody's life, even if it's one person, the satisfaction you get for starting a national discourse about something because of a story you did, the thought of knowing that your existence adds value to society one way or the other. And it takes a lot of reflection, a lot of understanding who you are as a journalist. For me, I'm a natural reporter.
Okay.
Some people have to learn to be reporters. For me, it just comes naturally. My greatest point as a journalist is my storytelling ability. I could tell a story in a wide variety of ways. You've read some of my stories, you've seen some of my stories, you've listened to some of my stories.
Yes.
So that ability to say, look, the one you said, the one podcast you listened to about the psychology of the House of Bride, if in 50 years somebody listens to it and they know that, 50 years ago, this was what life was as a House of Bride in northern Nigeria, it's something. So sometimes when you look at it in terms of big, achievement, you may be discouraged. But when you understand that the micro has more impact on the macro, it is just one person. Just be okay and keep doing the next story. Go on to the next story and keep doing it. So for me, journalism has been very, very rewarding. It's given my life a meaning in so more ways than one. And rewarding, not financially, definitely. Not financially, but the fact that, because when I was coming up, I was one of those very talented people who had a passion for a lot of stuff. I wanted to be an actress. By now, I could have been a film director because I was very good at these things. I wanted to, I learned to sew for a year, so I could have been a fashion designer. I still make jewelry. I had things that could make me like real money. So I had to choose the one I have the most passion for, and I pursued that, and that was journalism.
Okay.
And so it's been very rewarding.
How did you discover the journalist in you while growing up?
I went to a polytechnic.
Okay.
The polytechnic system, you have 4 years of school. After the first year, you go for 4 months industrial training. After the second year, you go for 1 year industrial training.
Okay.
That's why I can say I've been a journalist since I was 19. Because even then, you are a cub reporter, like a junior reporter.
Trainee reporter, yeah.
Yeah, and you are accorded the courtesy of a regular reporter. Okay. So I realized that when I was in school, one lecturer that really made an impact on me was my news writing lecturer. Okay. He was this very animated guy who had worked in print journalism, and the way he talks, he says, "Look, somebody just like when you were speaking to me, you had done your research. He said, look, do your research. Tell the guy what he had for breakfast, and he won't lie to you." And he told us of some of the things he had done. So I was really fascinated by this guy and how much passion he brought, to what he was teaching. So it was just a passion. His name, Mr. Rosi Bolariwa, the passion he brought to the classroom really, really fascinated me. And I thought, wow, I think I want to do this. I want to tell stories. I want to change things through the things that I write, through the things that I report, through the people that I interview. And so for me, that's all where it started. And then when I went to do my IT, the first one, the 4-month IT, I was in NTA Kaduna, and I learned so much. And people keep saying, are you on 1 year IT? I'm like, no, it's just 4. And they're like, wow, even some. Like even people on that national service, some of them are not as good as you are. Because one of the things that has helped me as a journalist is I'm a forever student. I'm always willing to learn, always willing to learn new ways of doing stuff, always willing to learn new things and stuff. And so that really helped, you know? And so for me, that's how I found out, like, look, I'm more comfortable here than anything else. I've done public relations, I've done filmmaking. I was good at all those things. I remember when I quit my public relations job, they said, oh, we had plans for you. You were one of our best and that. Well, the suits and the meetings were not my thing. I'd rather be out there. So those are some of the ways my lecturer, my IT, and seeing how the work is done, you know, and all of that really, really helped me make up my mind to say that this is what I want to do. So I left everything else I was interested in and focused on journalism.
What stands out as your most challenging assignments or assignments, if it's more than one?
I mentioned the story about the senator.
Yes.
There was also a quite a volatile incident in Abuja, the Nigerian capital, where there was a riot. I think the housing authority, the guys in charge of the master plan of Abuja, they were demolishing places and all that. So I had to go and cover the story. So I had to balance my story, talk to the people who were affected. But there were these angry, volatile people who were just angry that they were being evicted. They didn't want to listen to reason. So I had to speak to them, speak to their pain, empathize with them, so to speak, and say, okay, so how do you want to help you? So it was really tricky, you know, navigating those waters. Yeah. Because as far as they were concerned, journalists came because the government asked them to come. So journalists of the government. Yes. And you know, for me, journalism is about the audience, the people out there. Journalism should always be about the people, because we're supposed to make all the other all people in government and make sure the people get a fair deal. So if your journalism does not devolve to people getting a fair deal, then there's something wrong with that journalism. So it was kind of very tricky. Another incident was when Nigeria had this high level of militants in the Niger Delta.
Yes.
There was this amnesty program. They always putting me on the difficult assignment. And I'm like, no. They said, no, just go ahead and do it. Some boys can't even do it as much as you can. So some of these militants were offered amnesty. And I think they were paid as where they were supposed to be paid. They blocked the road and all that. So I think they had a backdoor agreement with government, and I was delegated to go and interview them. These are hardcore agitators, you know? So what I did when I get there was, if I want to ask a question, like, sir, may I ask why? So I became very, very genteel, you know? And the person would say, I am general, this person. I said, okay. So he's speaking to me. I'm like, okay, thank you. And I go to the next person. Sir, may I ask you? I just wanted to go leave that place with my head still on my shoulder.
That's right. Safety first.
That was a bit tricky for me as well.
Any golden memories in the line of duty?
One particularly when in 2009, the then Nigerian president,
Yar'Adua,
was rumored to have died, but the nation had not been informed. Nobody had been informed. And then, even though I was a utility reporter, I had like beats that I was assigned to. I was assigned to information and communications, power, oil and gas. So the minister so one day the editors just called me into, I call it a coven. I said, oh, you guys are witches and wizards. So they just called me and said, fine, how are you? I said, okay, what do you want? So they said, go and ask your madam. That was the minister of information. Go and ask her where the president is. I'm like, what? What kind of questions? So they say, go and ask her. And I was familiar with the Minister of Information as well. But one thing I always do, no matter how close I get to you, I'm first a professional before the personal comes on. When I got to her, usually when she wants to talk to the press, there's this guy that will just write stuff and hang it in front of the camera for her to read. So I was hoping and praying that he won't be there. When I got there, he wasn't there. So when I saw her, she was like, that her husband told her not to speak to the press, not to talk about the president, that he's not her business. So I looked at her. I said, ma'am, you do not belong to your husband when you're in that chair. You belong to 180 million Nigerians, the people who have entrusted you with the trust to tell us whatever is happening in our country. Those are the people your loyalty lies with. She looked at me. She said, okay, let's do it. So we started. So the first question I asked was, where is our president? She was like, oh my God, this my daughter will not kill me. So I said, let's start again. So I just told her, I said, look, ma'am, just say the truth. Be clear-minded, be simple, say the things you know. If you don't know something, say you don't know, you know? And so we started. And that was when, for the first time, a government official talked about the absence of the Nigerian president. And it was from that moment that, you know, things started rolling, and eventually they had to say that the man had died. And then there was a transition to President Goodluck Jonathan.
Should journalists be licensed?
I think so. I think so. Because there are people who think, especially people who studied English, they really get on my nerves because they think journalism is just about speaking English. Journalism is an art. English is like the blood in your body.
That's right.
That you need for the rest of your body to function. But you need the rest of the body, the art of the storytelling. How do you present it? How do you write it? I believe we have come to a point where journalists, if doctors can be licensed, if other professions can be licensed, people think it's illogical for somebody to compare journalism with being a doctor. But wars have started because of propaganda. Crises have been started because of fake news. So journalists are very important, much more than a lot of people can even imagine. If we all stop talking as journalists for one day, then the world will see that we're really needed. And for us to do our work effectively, according to the ethics of our profession, and to do it in such a way that the society in the long run benefits and gets to thrive because of what we do, I think it's important that journalists are licensed.
Something is happening in Ghana. There is the increasing political ownership of the media. So many politically exposed persons are setting up media platforms, radio stations, television, what have you. Is that the case in Nigeria? If it is, do we have a reason to be worried?
Yeah, there are tons of media organizations owned by politicians or people deeply affiliated with politicians. And I think we have a lot to be worried about. And it's not just in Nigeria, even Western media. For me, I find it appalling that a journalist will be labeled as a conservative journalist or a liberal journalist. A journalist is like a referee.
Yes.
You have a position in the game. You're just there to make sure everybody does their job. But when you get tagged, if, for instance, I switch to a channel and I know that the news will be skewed, you've already failed me.
Yeah.
There's a news channel, an international news channel, that since the days of Trump, I stopped watching.
Yeah. Because
everything they say is tainted with one thing or the other, and the other one too, that doesn't really show in America, in Nigeria, in Africa rather. So I think it's awful to journalism if newsrooms are owned by politicians or newsrooms are controlled by ideologies. Some people will argue that journalists can no longer sit on the fence. We are not sitting on the fence. We are the referees. We are the last resort of the average person. The average person should come to their news station or their web news or radio news to hear what everybody else is saying and then decide what they think is the right thing from what we have said. But when we begin to have an opinion that supports one side against the other, then it becomes a huge problem. It is already a huge problem. And that's why fake news is like one of the most flourishing thing out there. People just manipulate things, and with deep fake videos and all of those things, it's becoming increasingly, difficult as a journalist to be able to know what is the truth. And then in the case of, in the last US administration, alternative facts, whatever that means. It's incredible. What is alternative facts? Is it a fact or not? It's really, really worrisome.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel that, if there's going to be a deep escalation across the globe, it's going to be caused by fake news because of this control by these small individuals who are either politicians or just people with influence who think they have a right to control the media and to control what people hear about one thing or the other.
Yeah. You have done almost 25 years in journalism. If we are to roll back the hands of time, 30 years, are you still taking journalism, or it will be something else?
Actually, I hope to end up as a professor of journalism.
Okay.
So for me, this is a marathon. In that piece I was talking to you about,
yes,
maybe I should get a copy of my book and read some part of it to you.
That's fine.
It's titled Life in the Fourth Estate. Where is it? Life in the Fourth Estate. It's because it's in chapters. Ooh, where are you? No, don't be mean. Yeah. Fourth Estate. Wow. Oh, this thing is gone. This is different. For some reason, it's about me. Yeah, page 12.
Okay.
It says, okay, let me just read it to you.
Yes.
It says, I reside in the fourth estate of the realm. News hound, multimedia journalist, that's me. I wear the badge with dignity, responsibility. Didn't get here by chance. Carefully chose my trade. As shots at being an actress, fashion designer, film director, or publicist, chose journalism. Nigerian Television Authority Kaduna was my first rodeo. Cost my journalism teeth in the heart of the savannah. 19 fresh fish, famished for knowledge. Hungrily soaked in everything like a sponge. Christian journalism generation next. Lived up to the billing, I found my place. 20 frustrating years down the line, here I am. 30 days of work is gone, not a paycheck in sight. And it's business as usual, like it isn't happening. Executive, legislature pay themselves crazily. The judiciary grumbles but gets its fair share. Life in the fourth estate is skewed and hellish. We are gatekeepers of our society's values, nurturers of its conscience, defenders of the republic. How would that happen on an empty stomach? Journalists of the integrity are bought over by graft. Some bent on the straight and narrow trade jobs, leaving the fourth estate to the dregs of the poor. The Nigerian media is like a child of incest. Broadcast licenses get over sacrilegious acts. Media shops set up as ego trips on political clouds. Should have thought about being an actress, fashion designer, film director, or publicist. Really debated about following my dream. Diligent, fabulous, spectacular at my job. Even dreamt of raising an army just like me. hunger pangs are slowing me down. To vacate the fourth estate too. That's not happening soon. I'm in this for the long haul.
Wow. This is deep, and it captures it so well in a very picturesque manner. Exactly what is happening, maybe across Africa, because I can relate so well with the issues you raised in those lines. Wow. Are you looking at becoming the poetry side of you? Are you looking at harnessing it much more than the journalist in you, or they go hand in hand?
I'm more confident as a journalist than a poet. Okay. For me, I think people that poetry for me is like, you know how you meet a lady and then you're with her because she's beautiful, she's lovely and all that. For me, I'm with the lady because she's smart, she can have children, she can cook for me if she wants to and stuff. So I'm very practical. So I'm not like the poetry of I'm just an accidental poet. Okay. An opportunistic poet. Using poetry. I'm an opportunistic poet. Using poetry to tell stories I want to tell because I have so many stories inside of me. And I can't write them in one book, in one book. So I tell so many stories in just one book about the things I'm passionate about, the things that worries me, the things I'm going through, what's happening in society and stuff like that. So I'm not very confident as a poet. I'm just somebody using poetry for my own ends right now.
Nigeria has the brown envelope. Ghana has Soli. Cameroon has Gombo. Yes, in Ghana.
It's called different names too. It's not just the brown envelope. That's the English name. It's called Kwa. It's called Balamu. Depending on the region you're reporting from. If you're in Lagos, the brown envelope is the proper English name. Okay. If you're in Lagos, it's Balamu. If you're in Abuja, somewhere in the north, it's Kwa.
I see. In Ghana, we call it Soli, which is actually the shortened form of solidarity. In Cameroon,
oh my goodness. That's a new one.
In Cameroon, they call it Bombo. Now, what is your Bombo? I spoke to a Cameroonian journalist and he mentioned it. What is your take on it? Is it bribe? Is it an inducement? Is it a hurdle in the way of the journalist's work? Or it is some Pentecostal handshake that comes in a harmless package?
It's never harmless. Never. We can try to justify it to say, oh, people are not well paid and all that. But bad behavior is bad behavior.
Yeah.
It's wrong. That's just it. It's not right. Because, for instance, you say, oh, I'm a strong journalist. Even if they give me, I'm not going to say, what about the next person? What if people come in after you? And no organization gives you a brown envelope and expects nothing. Let's be on the public relations side as well. So I know this from either side. They always want something. If it's not something atrocious or something, they just want to be seen in good light. I remember I was interviewing the DG of the Consumer Protection Agency long ago, and then they had an event and I was talking to her. I said, madam, people don't know what you do. Nobody knows your organization. And she was looking at me like I said, what happened is, they call you to these press conferences. But when I go to them, I go there with my own agenda. I don't work for you. You can't tell me what to do with my time. So I found that if, the National Consumer Protection Agency is saying, oh, they're doing a press conference, and I'm like, okay, so what do they do? How does it affect people? Okay, let's do a sensitization story and kind of like an impacting story. What do they do? So that's what I was asking this woman. And when the camera stopped rolling, she actually said she would swing her bag and hit my head because of the way. and just to be able to justify what I said to her, I went to the market, the open market, and I asked like 10 people, shoppers. They said they don't know. I was just talking on assumption. So I remember after that, her media person came and said, "Oh, my friend, I said, look, I didn't come here to make trouble with you. I just came to do a story." So things like that happen. And even though she didn't have a crisis, she was not in a scandal, but she also doesn't want to be seen in a bad light as being incompetent, as not adding value, as not doing her job. So the guy coming up to me wasn't because he was a nice guy. He just wanted to be sure my last impression of his boss was that of nice, and friendly. So anyway you look at it, brown envelope.
You said you were hoping to enter academia. I am wondering, are you also hoping to retire here?
Not yet. I have like 5 years.
Okay. 5 years.
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah.
What will...
to fully go into, because you can never retire from journalism.
Yeah, that's true.
You can really never, especially things are right now. Even like some of those podcasts you saw, it was when I wasn't working for anybody. So like when people meet me, like, I'm a journalist, they go like, who do you work for? I say, nobody. I'm a freelance. And they look at me weird. I'm like, when you meet a doctor, do you ask them which hospital do you work? I'm a journalist. I don't have to work for somebody to be a journalist. I'm a journalist by training and by my long years of work. I don't need to. If I stop working where I'm working today, I don't stop being a journalist. I just stopped working for them. So I think people need to also understand that journalists ourselves, we need to understand that and not tie our identity to organizations, and understand that we have a craft that has been passed on to us by several generations of awesome journalists. And we owe it to them to do it with passion, with the highest ethical standard as much as we can, and to see ourselves as professionals. When I was coming up, you couldn't study journalism. He was like, oh, nobody wants to be a professional course. Like you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, you're an engineer, you're a doctor, and all. There's what they call JAM in Nigeria, Joint Admission and Exam. I did it 5 times.
Whoa. Because
I wanted to study law. 5 times. Not realizing that journalism was what I wanted to do. I was destined to do. I'm so glad now I didn't study law. But when I think about it.
Will you encourage anybody, maybe your relative or a mentee, to take to journalism? The person says, okay, I am looking at becoming a journalist in the future. Will you encourage the person that, oh, this is good, you have to follow it, it will take you, make you a better person? Would you encourage?
I have to be sure that's what they want to do. I spoke to a mentee 2 weeks ago, and from the conversation, I found out that she was really interested in teaching and sees broadcasting as a way to help her be a better teacher by using it to reach out to people, teach people stuff. Journalism is not for the fickle-minded. It's not for the double-minded. It's not for people without passion. And it's not for people who don't have follow-through. So I would say yes, if a mentee understands squarely, this is what you're getting into. If you're hoping to become a billionaire, this is not the profession for you. No matter how much you do, except to start a business, in line with journalism, you don't get a billion by working in a media organization. You cannot become a billionaire by doing that. So understanding that this is not just for them about making money, but about making impact. Yes, I would say yes.
You've told stories from 4 continents. In how many years do you want to cover the rest?
Maybe I'll go to Australia. Maybe I've never been to Latin America. I would like to go. I would like to go. Maybe to Brazil or Uruguay or something. I'd like to go.
My final question. Is freedom of the media a reality in Nigeria?
is threatened just like the rest of the world, because Nigeria is not in isolation.
Yeah.
Because so-called freedom of the press, even in Western countries, the threat may not be the barrel of a gun or being put in jail, but they are all out there. But I think first and foremost, journalists need to understand what freedom means for them. We need to understand what freedom means for us. The ability to do our jobs and to do it without any kind of things, any kind of, skeletons in our cupboards. Because that's what you find.
Yeah.
So you want to do a story, especially now that there's social media. So you want to do a story, and some guy on the other side who feels threatened by your story, send his guys to tell your story. Like, oh, that's the guy that's doing the story. Is this not the guy that beat his wife last week? Let's talk about me batching my wife. So we as journalists understand what freedom means for us personally. Are you free from your own personal shenanigans first? And then how much of society is entangling you from doing your job? Understanding that and finding a way to understand that being a journalist doesn't make you the enemy of government. Because when I teach journalism classes, I say to my students, don't make sweeping statements about government. Yeah. Don't say, oh, we know they will not answer us. Let's just say they did not answer us. No, that's wrong. That's bias. Yeah. And that's false information. So we need to think, oh, it's government, they are all bad. You'll be surprised. That sometimes it may seem like somebody is not listening to you, but in the long run, you might be able to achieve something.
Thank you for this. It's been exciting.
It was my pleasure.
I think I got you in your best of moods. A birthday mood is without compare, I must say. So this is memorable because it falls on a day myself I'll never forget. A birthday is a birthday. There's no other day in the year that compares to it. From all of us here on PENSDOWN, we are grateful for your audience and your time. And we also wish you many more blessed and exciting years ahead.
I wish you the best for what you do. As I said to you earlier, it's important to tell our stories as journalists, how it affects us. Because one of the things we say, I remember there was a Twitter space. I just bumped into it. I didn't know what was happening, and I got there. And talking about the violence and the insecurity and how. And when I spoke, I didn't even know how you speak in Twitter space. I just raised my hand. I thought, and it picked me. I was like, no, I wasn't supposed to speak. And I said, look, it's important as journalists we understand that we're not what's the word? We're not trauma proof.
Okay.
You're human as a journalist. You need to understand that. Understand your limits. Understand your mental health matters as a journalist. Yes. If you're not balanced in your head, you cannot be the journalist. You cannot be fair. You cannot be a person who tells people stories that impact people if you are dealing with grief, with PTSD and all of that. The reality of knowing that we're human as well and we seek help, take care of our own selves as we do the job is very important as journalists in the 21st century, especially.
Indeed, to buttress your point you just made, I hosted a colleague, Amaka Okoye, also in Nigeria. And after I read her profile, my very first question to her was, how is she securing her mental health? Because she was seeing too many atrocities in the line of duty, dead bodies here and there, kidnappings, terrorism. Is the family not worried? And she says she takes steps to ensure that she's fine. And for me, I was excited that she's deliberate about ensuring there are no relapses and, overdoses of all this. Yeah.
She's one of my ladies. Fantastic.
Wow. I'm really honored to have had you today. Thank you a lot. So many perspectives. Right.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This has been PENSDOWN, and today we've had the honor of the company of one of my senior colleagues, Omotola Adebanjo. Now, let me ask you this. I'm curious. This your name, Omotola. How many times have you answered in public And you have turned, and people have realized, no, this was not the person I was expecting. This is the other Nollywood.
I think mostly people just say Omotola Jelade, and I'm like, I'm not that. I'm not that. That's not who I am.
Wow.
She's a fantastic lady, but I'm not her.
Exactly. We'll be back next time, where we'll have another colleague sit here, and then we'll be talking journalism journeys. That's the singular menu here on PENSDOWN. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.